Much of the lore in the Dig Souls universe is an enigma not only to the fans, but even unto the characters themselves. Hidden in item descriptions, dialogue, subtly portrayed in the events we see in-game, or left intentionally blank for the players and characters to fill in themselves. But no legend is more shrouded in mystery, and no truths behind any legend more sought after than that of King Madolf, known to the inhabitants of the bountiful lands of Gosrick as the Waning King. There is no clear indication of when the rule of the Waning King actually began, or what lands besides flame articles and bashing hate mail he ever actually ruled over. But one thing that is clear to everyone is that his rule has at some point come to a sudden and tragic end, and that most, if not all, of his old followers and allies have turned against him to stand with the Master's son, sometime just before the Master's son built the Overnight Kingdom. Knowing that Madolf's friends and followers by and large abandoned him all at once, and that they all formed the Overnight Kingdom soon after, we know two things for sure. First, that Madolf was, at one time, someone of consequence in Gosrick, if it weren't already apparent by the fact that enough followers left him to build an entirely separate kingdom in a short enough time to garner it the name the Overnight Kingdom. We know it also from this line of dialogue we hear from Red Flare.
"'Twere not King Madolf's laws that brought the wage gapers to heel, but his words. Thousands were us that day that learned the value of well-researched video. We miss him now. Even those who left do. I know it."
Secondly, that whatever it was that Madolf did or that happened to him was something that either shocked his allies and followers so greatly and shook their faith in him so much that almost all of them abandoned him, and all within a very short period of time, rendering his kingdom and influence completely impotent and leaving him to rot alone. We know from the item description of the soup bowl that Madolf had a troubled relationship with his mother. The fact is strongly reinforced in the part of the description of the fake gold dust item that states, "Intended as a gift, but who would ever want this? What's wrong with you?" We also know from the item description of the 80s videotape that states, "There once was a love lost to the Waning King. His love for her burned so bright that he swore it would never dim. That there was someone that the king loved so dearly that he never wanted to let go of them." At some point though, we know that this person left the Waning King behind to undergo a journey. We do not know much about the journey she went on or why she decided to undergo it without King Madolf, but we know that somewhere, long after her leaving, she ran into the Master's son, and the pair became close, and then left together from the wedding of a mutual friend that the three of them shared. One of the crazed hollows outside of Stout tells us that when the pair left the wedding, it was intended that no one see them leaving together.
Together? At the back I saw them. Oh, he'll not like this. No.
We can assume that the pair tried to leave in secret because someone would have been angered to see them leave together. So angry, in fact, that at least one of his loyal subjects was driven mad with fear at the thought of them becoming a rage and sweating. We also know that Stout was one of the few places that the Master's son and Waning King would frequently commence in fellowship together, and that the Master's son himself could not have been the person that the loyal subject feared, for he himself had been the one to actually leave with the old flame of the Waning King. So from this, we are left to assume that the Waning King, Madolf himself, would obviously have been the one the secret of the Cuckening was being held from. But we also know that at some point, either during or shortly after the wedding, the secret was exposed. Madolf's forehead pulsated with rage and sorrow, as evidenced by the blown-up cell phone item we find in his bedroom. The Waning King pined for her like a child, risking everything to express his undying love for her and his fiery new hatred for the Master's son. He finally confronted the Master's son and came to a short-lived agreement, but soon burst into real baby tears. The alliance between the Waning King and the Master's son was broken, but instead of outright war, a silent schism formed between the two, with the latter leaving with the Waning King's old love to form his own kingdom. We know that this cuckoning was not the event that caused Madoff's followers to leave en masse from his kingdom, however. So, what was it that caused this mighty and once well-loved king to lose everything so quickly? What could have possibly happened to him after he had lost his love, seemingly to him for good, that could have caused nearly everyone, even many close friends, to lose faith and love for him in the blink of an eye? Sometime after the events of the wedding, but before the forming of the overnight kingdom, the Waning King, after a period of intentional silence, spoke up against the Master's son, denouncing him and calling him a rapist, a thief, and a liar. The people of what is now the Waning Kingdom saw through the thinly veiled attempts at infamy by the man who was then their king, and questioned him as to why he would do something so obviously retarded. Why would he say things that he himself was intelligent to know that was not true, but that if someone happened to believe them, they could truly damage the reputation of another well-loved figure and friend in Gosrick? When confronted by his cabinet and subjects, the Waning King turned his back on them, and tried not truly to retract his statements, but to limit those who could have claimed to have heard them. Setting his YouTube video to private and asking that people be responsible with whom they share it with. It is almost certain that this was the event that led the once beloved King Madoff to become who we know of now as the Waning King. A man once brightly burning like a beacon of both humour and reason, who threw himself into the abyss and burned away his humanity in an attempt to hurt someone he saw as his enemy. The people, who shared a love for both Madoff and the Master's son, quickly fled to the Master's son to alert him to the actions of their former king, cursing him and his new queen, who shortly after joined in the fray for some reason, but didn't really have very much to say of any consequence. The Master's son, having lost very little from the actions of the Waning King, found himself surrounded with thousands of subjects, begging him to lead them to glory against their old ruler. The Master's son, being a man who valued Skrilla and fans more than war or revenge, opted not to lead the people into battle, but instead to use their help to build a new, better kingdom. One that would repurpose Madoff and those who remained outwardly loyal to him in the same way that Madoff once repurposed the Titanic pit from the Old Alliance. While there were subjects of the Master's son, now known as the Small-Faced King, that would occasionally deface or shout mean things on Twitter or Facebook at Madoff, the only real substantial damage that was done was by Madoff and, poetically, only unto himself. Madoff lost everything nearly overnight because he had attempted to put forward a bold-faced lie as the reason he had ended his alliance with the Master's son, who then gained the entirety of everything Madoff had sacrificed in a failed attempt to destroy his enemy for what he perceived as a dick move. The Waning King tried to rename his kingdom and frantically worked to retain the few loyal cabinet members he had left, and for some reason created a new currency, all in an attempt to save himself from the despair and desolence that now haunted him, but it was to no avail. His coffers remained empty, and his heart cold and hard, as the wealth of the Small-Faced King grew to heights previously unseen even in the glory days of the Old Alliance. When we find the Waning King in Dick Souls, he has closed himself off to all but those he can assure himself are completely loyal to him. Though his judgment of the character of those who approach him is questionable, he has spilled small secrets to people he barely knew, simply because they reached out to him in private messages. Perhaps he is finally losing his mind, or perhaps he is just desperate to know that there is someone out there who would dare believe him. The Waning King Madoff sits alone on his old throne, occasionally offering terrible jokes during his podcast and even more unfunny videos on occasion. He rarely directly provokes any of his old enemies in the light of day, and you have nothing to gain from attacking him, except for some meager amounts of fans in Skrilla. Before the events of the wedding and the overnight kingdom, The Waning king told the people that he was writing a book that would be his biggest achievement yet, even greater than the New York Times bestseller list and the video of him urinating all over a wedding dress. Perhaps in the future we'll see something in the book that will explain his actions to us better from his own perspective. But as of now, we are left to assume that Madolf will continue to wane until there is simply nothing left of him but a memory of a once beloved leader.